views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to ArtTime with the BXArtsFactory. My name is Ant and I'm excited to be partnering with BronxNet to bring you this episode. Today, you'll be getting to know a little bit about me and how I became an artist, and also a little bit on how to do still life drawings. I always remember drawing. It's not like I was gonna try to be an artist, and I was encouraged, even though I didn't particularly think what I was doing was good. My mom and my teachers saw something in whatever I was doing and encouraged me to do it. And so it was just fun for me, and that's just like something you did for fun. There was no internet when I was growing up, when I was a baby. So I was encouraged to apply for the art school that's in Manhattan. I think it's the Manhattan High School for Art. I didn't go to that high school, and then I went to a college in upstate New York studying psychology because that's what my sister did. And then I partied. I was just wasting time. I was wasting my life away until my father passed away. And then when that happened, all I could do was draw. That was it. And so from there, I realized that this is helping me more than just, I'm trying to draw comic books. And so I made that little connection and I said, all right, I should probably have to go move home because of the circumstances. And so I did that. And so I moved home, and then for like a year, I would say I worked on this portfolio and just working through whatever I had to process at that time. And then I got into SVA. And I'd like to say, oh wow, what a great thing that I went to art school and this is wonderful. But I honestly, looking back, I didn't take it as seriously as I should. I had a lot of opportunities. I didn't take all the computer courses I should have. I messed around too much. I wanted to be like South Park. I just wanted to make crappy animations. And so I did that, and nothing's gonna come out of that. Whatever you put in is gonna come out. So after graduation, I had a lot of difficulty finding work, and so I just kept at it, and I got serious like after graduation, and eventually I had a portfolio of a lot of stuff. A lot of things that I was really proud of, and like a solid 10 animations. And so I had gotten myself to a point that I was pretty proud of up until then. Well, right now art is all I have in my life. The pandemic took everything else away. So it's all I have. But outside of family and your relationships and what have you. It's no one knows how good you are but yourself, and no one knows your weaknesses but yourself. So really be introspective, and above all things, just keep doing it over and over and over again. I think it's something I want to say whenever we do our project, or with the project coming up, is just take your time and don't be afraid to start over. A piece of paper is just a piece of paper. I feel bad for the trees, but we've got to draw on something, right? If you don't like what you're doing, crumple it up, toss it out, start again. And that works with almost, everything I've experienced in life. The Bronx is very accepting, and I love that. Because in the school that I grew up in, or the school that I went to as a child, I was kind of, the way I looked was the minority, but I was accepted 100%, not for anything else, but for who I was and how funny I was, and I could draw, all that. The Bronx is, to me, is the mecca of who we are as hip hop and as our culture. In terms of my work, I mean, I shot a film here. I didn't release it because I was very embarrassed about it. But it's kind of cool to see old graffiti kind of capture moments in time here and there. So graffiti is that style and that kind of comic book, kind of cartoony. That's me. That's who I am. And I was exposed to that early on in the Bronx, just from walking around and looking at graffiti and thinking, I can do that. I know I can do that. And that, I feel like that starts the ball rolling in terms of like what we were saying before with confidence. I love that. I love seeing someone else doing something and saying, oh, I think I could do that, you know, and trying, and then either failing or succeeding and getting enjoyment out of that. I think a big challenge is mental health accessibility in the Bronx. I mean, just for myself, back when I was working, I've had full-on insurance and wasn't able to find anyone that would take that insurance in the Bronx, you know, in terms of mental health services. So I think that is a challenge. Art is important because of innovation. If it wasn't for art, then nothing would be like what it's like today. And you know, it's what got us here too. You know, it's our ingenuity as a species, right? You had to learn how to fashion an arrow so that you can eat, or you know, think of the first cave people that, you know, fashioned clothing to stay warm. That gene, that, you know, it's important because is the essence of what we are and what we should try to be. In religion, they say you should try to be like God, or try to, you know, you're made in God's image, right? Or what did God do? God created, right? So we should be able to try to create. In 2015, I think, I did a piece with my buddy Trevon. He took a photo of Gary Clark Jr. and was like, hey, can you do something with this? And I was like, all right. And so I just kind of put together a little piece, and it's similar to the AOC on my left. And that kind of sparked something for me, and I thank the BXArtsFactory for that, because I remember I was working at that brokerage that I was talking about before at that time, and it made me feel like, oh wow, I remember this. Remember how fun this used to be? Remember when you didn't give up on yourself? And so I after years of not years, but after some time of not really taking art seriously anymore, I submitted a piece to, I think it was a fundraiser you guys were doing, and it sold for like $250. I'm very super proud of that. I mean, I was like ecstatic about that. And so and again, anything Bronx, you know, that's my heart. So I try to support it as much as I can. I'm happy to say that I'm pretty certain that I'm going to be working in tattooing. Right now I'm doing tattoo portraits on fake skins, just practicing. I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm keeping back news for right now. And I just want to say it has been a long road to this point, and figuring out what works best for me in terms of how I want to support myself as an artist, and how I want to live my life. And I mean, you can't see them now, but I'm pretty tatted up. So it's my passion. I love it. It's what I want to do for the rest of my life, and it seems like I'm pretty close to locking that down. And tattooing kind of saved me also. I did an apprenticeship in 2018, and that taught me more than, you know, SVA or any, you know, schooling or anything. And it was because I was doing it for free. At that time, I was doing my side business as an insurance broker. The second time I went looking for an apprenticeship, I got one. And so I'm super proud of that. And yeah, shout out to Miss Fortune, who was my mentor. And I love stand-up ever since I was a kid. And I didn't do it up until 2020, and then 2 months later, a pandemic hit, and I couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, I want to work on my own graphic novel. The Bronx is his backdrop, so we get our superhero. Welcome back, it's your boy Ant with your ArtTime project. We are going to be doing some still life drawing. It's really the best thing to do if you want to get into drawing. Practicing with still life offers you the shapes, simple shapes, and the values that you're looking for when you want to put together a drawing, something that can look dramatic. Okay, for our supplies, we are looking at just a simple piece of paper. Printer paper would be fine. An eraser, simple pencil, and a sharpener if you need it. Also, a piece of tissue or paper towel. We'll be doing a smear technique just to give it an effect, a kind of a soft effect. Composition's important. Keep in mind your light source. There could be the difference between something that's just regular and something that looks dramatic. Keep in mind you want to kind of design where your shadows are going to be with your light. And just make something that you're comfortable with. Don't go overboard. Baby steps with anything, right? So the next step I would get into is just kind of get used to it, spend time with it, and try to notice your glares, your shadows, because we're going to kind of go into these things like one step at a time. Looking at our composition, a good way to make sure that we have our proportions correct is by just starting out with boxes, or you could start out with negative space. We'll start with a large box to get the biggest object in our composition, which is the vase and the brushes. And you can start a proportion by kind of just picking a spot somewhere, kind of lightly up at the top. So the very top of this is where the longest brush is, all right? And so that's my box. I'll go as wide as I think it is. And if you're wrong, so what? So there's our box. And I think it's going to come down to about here. And that's where, so that was our original mark. That's where the tip of my brush would be. And so just make some loose kind of gestures. So we have the brush handle, a couple lines to where the middle part of the brush is, a couple quick lines. Very light, who cares if that's not accurate. Okay, and then the bottom of this box, I'm going to cut off with another couple boxes, which will represent our apples. So we've got 3 of our boxes, we only need 1 more. And so I'll look at the space, I won't look at the apples and trying to figure out the proportion, how far away this apple is. I'll just look in between, I'll look at the negative space. And that actually gives me a better idea as if I was to just start to draw 2 apples and hope that they're somewhere near each other, in the right spot. So those are little tricks you're going to use here and there to get better. So just from that, we at least have where everything is going to be, and now we can kind of go back in and figure out how to fit everything else back in, or the detail, I should say. We can go back in and get slightly more detail. And remember, it's all just shapes and lines, kind of. There's another object here. I'm going to look at the negative space. It's about that wide. One thing to keep in mind, there's something in drawing that's called lazy line, and I've got plenty of lazy line here, but it's because I'm just kind of mapping out what I want to appear on this page. But lazy line is this. oh, I want to get this here. Oh, oh, oh. And you don't want lines that look like that to start, you know. Try and be confident with your lines. I mean, you know, no one's judging anyone here, so, but we are trying to get the image somewhat, to look somewhat like what the objects actually are. Yeah, so we just have another apple left here. Looking back, maybe the box needs to be a little bigger than what I had it. Actually, this apple needs to be a little bigger. I could go back here and we could fix things all day long. But so here is another trick here to try and figure out where I should base the bottom of this apple. That same technique, you can kind of keep it in your peripheral and then make your line, and it's somewhere like right here. So that's the bottom of my apple, and then also that's where a shadow starts. So I can make a little mark. I shouldn't make that mark that dark, but there's a shadow there. And that's the next step that we're going to get into. It's marking off all our dark areas before getting into some detail. This is the basis of what you want to start with, because you're mapping everything out. You're starting your lights and your darks. All you need, if I was just drawing this apple, this is all I would need. I have my light source, I have everything. It's mapped out. Now all I have to worry about is the value for each area, okay? And so the darkest areas, I'll go in and just kind of make a mark in there. And I'll make a similar mark for the darkest areas. There's actually kind of a medium area. So we're paying attention to our lights and our darks. Okay. And I'm going to do that for the rest of this right now. I just make a mark. Looks like a mess, I know, but hang in there. If yours looks like a mess, hang in there. Keep going until you think you can't go no more. Here you can look at the intersection of where the vase meets the apple, and there's a shadow coming right out of there, or the top part of the shadow. And then here's this shadow. It doesn't touch this apple, but almost does. And so our map is almost complete, and so we know where we're going. We know where we've been, things we like, things we don't, and we'll address all of those in our next step. I guess we could start with the bottom shadows, because they all look like pretty even values. So like, you know, the one in the back is light, and then the three in the front are kind of medium values. And we're using our number 2. So that's our line. And you can just back and forth with your motion very lightly. It's already kind of a little dark, but that's why we have some tissue paper. And we can lighten it up later. So now you're just doing the same technique, the same pressure, just over it. And because there's 2 layers of it, it's naturally darker. Underneath this apple is where the least light is going to be. Right underneath something. So that's your darkest area. And with your shading, I mean, it should generally be all in the same kind of direction. Your eye to your hand, you know. Keep the brain out of it, because that's all I'm doing. All I'm doing is following my roadmap, double checking with the actual apples to make sure I wasn't, too off with my assessment. And into this apple. We didn't go too dark in those areas. So there's still hope for a nice glare here and there. So we're just continuing with our darks. And maybe you should shade in kind of the angle you think the shape is. That helps. Or you could just kind of leave it, all shading in the same direction. It's kind of a personal taste type thing in terms of style and design. But we're smearing it, so it kind of doesn't matter. But, if you left your drawing like this, some people might like it. They might like, hash work and what have you. But we're going to try to go for, we're trying to keep observational drawing in mind. So I just want to throw in more blacks before we speed up. Okay, so we've gotten up to a point where we know where everything is. We know where our lights are, we know where the darks are, we've got our composition in check. Now we're just gonna smear. We wanna kind of just make everything as soft and smooth as possible. Yeah, we're at a spot where we can take our tissue and just go in and just smooth out. depending on how heavy you went, certain lines might even just kind of be almost erased completely just from smearing it. You want to apply pretty firm pressure, and if it's not perfectly smooth, it's okay, we can still go back with our pencil. Actually neglected our entire background for some reason. It's okay. We didn't have a very crazy background. And so certain spots need a little bit more lead. And line. Go back, add some line work. This is just kind of what I want to do with it, because I want to throw a little flair into it as much as I can. But here it's very short strokes, and just be aware of your pressure. Or you could even keep the same pressure and go over and over again until you get where you want, but that takes a little more time. All right, so we're gonna stop there just for time purposes. So this is our finished piece. Just some things we may have missed. You wanna use your eraser. You can make these light marks here just to denote some glare. Also, no time for the background today, so I just went through some lines back here. And so, of course, you want to include your background always, but know that anything in your background should be softer and not as hard and as harsh and as visible as what's in front of you, obviously because of distance. So keep everything kind of softer in the background, and include your background, which is probably the more important point here. So yeah, I think we got everything that we missed. And yeah, here's your piece. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Art Time with BronxNet and the BXArtsFactory. Peace.